All right. So I want to start a project here. And I think that a lot of you might not be familiar with the tools that I'm using. So what I'm going to start with doing first is describing what tools I'm using, what they do, what role they serve, that kind of thing. So you can see on my screen, I've got a thing open, this console called MinGW. This is a Linux-like terminal that interfaces with Windows. So I'm still in a Windows environment. You can see I'm accessing my K drive, which is a thing that exists here on my machine. But I can interact with it using bash commands like ls, which is like list directory. That's useful because a lot of software is written specifically to work in a Linux-like environment, and in order to make them accessible to Windows, something like MinGW can help bridge that gap. So I'm using this terminal mostly because I'm familiar with it. It's not necessary. You could use a command prompt if you wanted, like one of these CMDs. You could use a PowerShell window if you're familiar with that. One of these. But my preference is to use this thing here. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to be writing a new web server or web application. I want to have a website that lets me see a list of songs, click on a song to play it through the web browser. I'm going to be adding a bunch of features as I go, but that is the bare minimum requirement. And I'm going to be using a JavaScript framework for this. So I think most of you have done a little bit of training with HTML and JavaScript. The idea here is I'm going to make a web page. It's going to be running HTML. It's going to load JavaScript, and the JavaScript is going to control what things are shown on the screen and what happens when a user interacts with those things on the screen. But I'm not going to be writing in plain old JavaScript. I'm going to be using a JavaScript framework. The reason why I'm going to be using a framework is because it'll cut down on development time, and it'll let me worry less about trying to hook everything up manually. One of the nice things about the frameworks that are available today is they make it easier to kind of like pattern your code. So when you're writing a lot of code, you don't want to just dump a bunch of logic in there because it'll become a disorganized mess really quick. So that's just another advantage of using a framework. So the JavaScript framework I'm going to be using today is called React. It is something that is very popular these days. It's something that a lot of the industry is using. So it is very useful for somebody who wants to do web application development to learn. In order to make that work, however, I'm going to be using something called a tool chain. So I've got installed on my computer a thing called Node. Node is many things. Node is primarily a way to run JavaScript on your computer. So right now, when you visit a website, the website will load JavaScript in your browser, and your browser will run the JavaScript. But what if you want to run JavaScript without a browser? Node lets you do that. So I've got a variety of web servers that I've written in Node, which are really lightweight. They're easy to write software for. They're very clean looking. I'm not going to be using it for that purpose. I'm going to be using it for its secondary purpose, because along with Node, it is bundled a thing called Node Package Manager. If you're familiar with a package manager, you probably already know what this is. If you're not, a package manager is basically another way to download and install programs on your computer. So if you're familiar with a Windows environment, you'll be familiar with navigating to a website, searching for like the program you want, clicking to download the thing, letting it download through Chrome or some other browser, clicking the install file, letting it pop up a wizard, clicking through the dialogues, hitting enter, typing in details, whatever, right? It's a really long and complicated process that is made so much easier with the use of a package manager, because I simply have to type a command. It will go get it for me from the internet. It'll do all the installation for me. It won't ask me a dang thing. If I need additional things on my system first, like if it has a dependency on some other piece of software, it'll figure that out on its own. It'll go download it. It'll install it. It won't ask me a dang thing. So package managers are good. And additionally, the Node tool has a script execution thing. I'm going to be taking advantage of that to build me a template React development environment. So I can just go in there, tweak the files that I want to be different, and make it do what I want. So, okay, enough talking. Let's get started. I'm going to use the Node package executor to run a thing called create React app. This just comes bundled with the Node tools. So all I have to do is download Node, and you can open up a console window and type this in. I think it's actually, I also need to give it a name, so it's probably gonna whine at me. We'll call it, I don't know, music site. Because remember, I wanted to host music files and be able to listen to them through the website. And then I accidentally typed a quote there. There we go. So this is going to start creating a folder for my music site. It's going to go download and install some things needed for React to work. See, it's installing packages. That includes React, React DOM, and React Scripts. So those are 3 different packages. And I'll show you how packages work in a moment in this environment. This is going to take a couple minutes to complete. Here you can see it's already started to add this this folder, and it's created this package.json file. This file contains all the information about which packages are required for this project to work. This is very useful. If anyone's familiar with using like repository software like Git or SVN or some other thing to store code so that other developers can use it, this package.json helps a lot, because I don't actually have to commit. I don't have to push all of the installed programs, all the installed modules into the repository. When let's say I'm starting, let's say I'm joining a project already in progress, and somebody else has pushed all of their code into a repository. As long as they've got a working package.json file, they don't have to push all of the dependency modules, all the little like React, for example, and React DOM. That doesn't have to be a part of the saved files. I can just tell Node to install those modules, and it will go and get them for me. It'll look inside the package.json and say like, oh, this is what you need, and then go install and download those for me. So this is most of the way done. And you can see it's spat out quite a lot of files here. And then when it's done, it's going to spit out some useful information for me, which I'll keep around for later. Aha! Success! Created music site at this folder. And then it tells me what commands I've got available. This is part of using that create React app. It downloaded and installed the React scripts and React scripts can help me build the website. I say build the website because these days web applications can get very, very, very large. So what a lot of applications do these days is they use a separate Webpack module. Basically, what you'll do is you'll run your JavaScript and your other website resources through a tool which will figure out how to combine them all into a small package, a bundle, so that when somebody loads up the website, they don't have to download all the individual little JavaScript files. They can get one big file where everything's been scrunched down into this tiniest size possible. It helps save bandwidth when you have a lot of people trying to navigate to your site, and if people are on mobile, it means that they don't have to download as much information to get the site running on their phone. It's just kind of a win-win, but it does mean that there's a little bit more complication. It's like almost like a compilation process, but not quite. Anyway, we've got a source folder here. This is dumped a bunch of JavaScript CSS files here. These make up the default website, which I'll show you in a bit. We've got a public folder, which are all the static files, the things that are not going to change, like the HTML file, some images, icon, and node modules folder. These are all the things that the package manager installed. So these are all required for building this website. I know it looks like a lot, and it kind of is a lot, but it's all worth it. That's all I can say about that. So, well, now I want to see the website. How do I do that? What I can do is type npm start. See, it says here, right here, npm start. It's going to take those I didn't go into the directory. See how I'm on K projects and this is in the music site? Let me go into music site. Now, like I said a moment ago, I'm going to say npm start. It's going to run a process to compress the JavaScript into a small bundle, and then it'll pop it up in my browser. So this is the default React website that you get from running that create React app. I started learning React before I went back to my job, but it is very applicable in my job now. It just so happens where I work, we're going through a transition where we want to move away from the framework we're using now and start using this one. It's partly because the framework we are using now is causing problems, and partly because so much of the industry uses React and other languages like, or frameworks like React, that in order to benefit from modules, like cool little modules packages that other people have used, we need to use this, we need to use something that everyone's using. We can't use our current framework. No one uses our current framework. It's just like old and out of date. So why don't we go see how this web page is put together. So we have an index.html file. When I navigate to this, it's downloading the HTML file. I can actually show you that in the Chrome DevTools. This here is actually the index.html. You may be familiar with this already, that if you're navigating to a website, if you don't type in a file name, it usually defaults to index.html. So if I go here it loads the same thing because this and this both point to the index.html file. So this is the HTML file, and I can show you that this is the same file that's sitting in our public folder right there versus I need to open up Visual Studio Code or some other code editing software. I want to open a folder, projects. I'm going to open up this folder, this music site folder. Here's our public folder, and it's got an index.html. Put that on the left. Put this on the right. Let's see if I can make it easier to see. Website created using React app, create React app. Yep, this is the same file. Except this one has this little added bit at the bottom. Because when I ran Npm Start, it took all of the JavaScript files and compressed them into a single bundle file. And then it added a tag here at the bottom of the HTML file so that when you visit the site, it actually gets the JavaScript and runs it. But we can look at that in a second. Let's go look at the actual raw JavaScript before it gets processed by the Node package manager Start. We've got index.js. This is going to be our entry point for the JavaScript. It's got all these import functions at the top. That means I need something from another file. Remember when it installed that React package? This here is pointing to that React package. This one's pointing at the React DOM package. This one's pointing at the CSS page that's in the same folder, this guy right here. App, that's this guy right here. And report web vitals, this guy right here. So it loads these files in, and then it gives them a name. Here, this is the main meat of what's happening in this file. First, we're importing React DOM from the React DOM package. Then we're using it to render some content onto the page. What content do we want? This content. This is a function. It has two arguments, this render function here. The first argument is everything before the comma is what we want to render. If you're used to using HTML, this will look kind of like HTML. It's designed to look like HTML. It's not quite. It's a little different. It's special. Hello. I am recording this, by the way, so I will post this. So what I'm going through now, I have generated a React application. I have not written any code myself. This is all stuff that was put into the template, and I'm going through the template to show what it is and what it does. So these things are loading resources from different files. We're using this resource, this React DOM resource, to call this render function. Render just means we want to put something into the page. This is what we're putting into the page. And then after the comma, that's fine. After the comma, we have a second argument, which is where we want to put it. So we have to specify an existing element on the page to use this render function. I wish this gave you a description instead of just being a garbled mess. But what we want, where we want it. Document means the entire web page, and then get element by ID means find a thing whose ID is root in the web page. Let's go look at that again on the HTML. Here's a thing whose ID is root on the HTML. So this is going to find this and then put this stuff inside of it. So what is this stuff? These things are what React calls components. They let us use JavaScript in a style similar to HTML. This React.strict mode is a component that I don't actually know what it does, but it's not important. It's just something that enforces some kind of rule. Here, this app component is one that exists in our application. So if I go to it, hey, look, it's that app.js file. Here, the application is defined. What is this application defined as? This is going to take a little bit of unpacking, so bear with me here. App is a function. It returns a bunch of crap, a whole lot of it. In fact, it returns a bunch of HTML. Almost unaltered HTML. It's almost exactly what you would see in just any website, right? Except we've got a variable here. So this logo is an image, an SVG file that's being imported from somewhere else, from here. And when we import it, we're going to use it as the source of this image tag. Behind the scenes, when I run npm start, this import is going to find this image, this SVG file, and then it's going to find a way of bundling it. It's kind of hard to describe without just seeing it a few times, but I believe if I look inside of here, you don't see just a logo.svg. You see a logo and a bunch of letters and numbers, and then SVG. That's part of the bundling process. It's basically trying to discover all of the things that are needed, all the resources, all the JavaScript files, all the CSS files, all the HTML, all of the SVGs, images, all of that stuff that it can. And then it wants to be able to put it into a package that's easy for the website to download. So that's what it's done here. You might notice it's when I make this request, it's coming to this localhost 3000. This is the URL, right? Static media logo. I'm not actually sure where on my computer this stuff is hosted. It's done some magic to hide this from me, but it doesn't really matter to me. It's not important where these files are. All that's important is that I told it it needed the logo, and it found the logo. If I look on the page, the actual page, this page, here's the logo. Let's go back to here. This says edit source app.js and save to reload. Edit source app.js and save to reload. And then it's got a link down here. If you want to learn React, this will take you to some documentation that React has out on the internet. So this default template is actually quite helpful. If you wanted to, from here, of course, you could start reading up on how React works. But my intent is to now start using this. I'll try my best to describe what I'm doing as I do it. bear with me now. This is going to be kind of dense. So anyone who watches this, please ask questions. I will try my best to answer questions. I want this to be as clear as possible, and I want this to feel useful. I don't want this logo. I don't want this logo. It's going away. This index.html can stick around. This index.js, where did the index.js go? I thought it was right here in this file. Did I delete it or something? No. What the heck? Did I just delete the wrong thing? I think I deleted the index.js. That's a shame. I can't undo that. Oh, I can undo that. It's like it never even happened. This is the one I wanted to delete. Goodbye. My app. I don't want all this stuff. Goodbye. Now my React app has nothing in it. It's got this HTML page, which will draw the contents of app.js on it. So I'm gonna start with something simple. What I want from my website, my music player website, is to have a list of songs and a set of controls to, play, pause, fast forward, rewind. So I'm gonna have two basic components. Before I get too much further, I'll just kind of give them a name. So we'll call it like player, music player. I'm gonna put a component around this, just a plain old div. If you're not familiar with HTML, a div is just like a box. It's a container. It's a visual element. It gets drawn to the screen. I'm going to make this container take up the entire browser window. And then I'm going to draw a music player, and then below the music player, I'm going to draw a playlist. I'll even say music playlist. Why not? That's great, but right now, this application has no idea what a music player is, and it has no idea what a music playlist is. So I'm going to tell it what they are. Let's say const for constant, music player equals, and then I'm going to write this form here. This is a lambda expression. This is a way of describing a function without writing the word function. Here are our input parameters, and then I can return something from this if I want to. In React, this framework, the way that these components work is this function will get called whenever it needs to draw a music player. What I need to do is return the contents. What is it? What is a music player? What gets drawn to the screen when a music player is drawn? That's what I have to draw here, or what I have to return from here. So we're just gonna say it puts another container, a div, here. Indent it because otherwise I'll feel sad. And inside the div, I'm going to put the words, this will be a music player. These brackets here mean like you surround any code you want to put in these brackets when you're inside the return here. It's a little different from normal JavaScript. If I wanted to write code up here, I could just write code here. Like if I had a variable I wanted to define, I could say var my thing equals, hey, what's up? Actually, what I could do is grab this and say temporary label. Have a variable called temporary label. I'm actually going to make it a constant because its value does not change. And I'm going to use temporary label down here. So now it knows what music player is, but it doesn't know what music playlist is. I am just literally going to copy paste this, call this one a music playlist, make this temporary label say this will be a music playlist, and it can return the same thing. Because I have Npm Start running in this console, one advantage of using this Npm Start, it will detect any time the files in this folder change and rebuild all of the JavaScript for me. So all I have to do is come back to the website and reload it. This will be a music player. This will be a music playlist. Those are my two components. I just made them. These are the starting point for my components. But I have at least demonstrated here, I think, how you would create a component and how you would use that component. So from here, of course, I want to make this a lot more complicated. I want some player controls. I want to have the name of the current song playing. I want to have a bar that fills up over time that shows how far into the song I am. I want to have a volume knob or volume buttons, a mute button perhaps. Maybe a display that shows me how far into the song, like the timestamp, and how much time is left. So why don't I describe that? A music player is going to be a back one song button. What do we call that? Previous song button. We'll have a next song button. Actually, we're going to have stop song button. Play song. What I'm going to do is have a stop that'll just stop it entirely. I will also have a pause. And what I'm going to do with the play and pause is I'll only show one of them at a time. If we're currently playing a song, then I'll only show pause. And if we're currently not playing a song, I'll only show play. And then we'll have a next song button. Well, now I have to make all these things. I also do not need this temporary label anymore. You can see as I built this is going to start getting longer and longer. This file is going to get bigger and bigger. So pretty soon I'll start needing to split this off into different files. But for now I'm going to carry on like I have been. So I'm just going to start one at a time, doing the same exact thing. We're going to return this will be a div. Actually, why don't we just make this an image this time? It's going to be a button. It's just going to show a picture of a back button or a previous song button. So that's what this thing will give us. I actually have some images already. I can move them over from a different project. So I'm going to go ahead and go find it, which is going to take me a second because I don't have it ready to go. I'm going to grab all these images. Previous, pause, stop, play, next. Perfect. I'm going to grab all these images. Folder. Come back into music site, paste my folder. Excellent. What I could do is move them into public along with all of the other images that were already there. I can always change this up later if I want to move the images into a different folder, but for now I just want to kind of stick with the folders they started me out with. If I go back to my project, I should now be able to import previous image, previous image from up one folder, public. Maybe don't do this. 1 second. Dooby-dooby-doop-doop-dooby-doo-doo. This will happen while working on a project. You'll run into a problem when you are confident that you had it all figured out. It's important not to get too upset about it, because usually, you know, like I said, this is just going to happen, and you're going to have to figure it out on the fly. Sometimes this will happen during a demo or during a recorded thing like this, but it's not really a big deal. I'm going to save this, but then I'm going to undo back to the way it was, because I'm going to see how the template had it. Because I believe they used an image in here. They used the logo, and the logo was from this very folder. Okay, maybe I have to put all of the images in the same folder. So let's go ahead and try that. I want these, you and you, cut, paste. Now why don't you want to work? I would expect it to, although I guess it doesn't seem to suggest app.css. I wonder if it's because it's already here. No, it doesn't. So perhaps I shouldn't rely too much on this autocomplete. Let's just see what works, you know, if it works. The name of it, I think, was prev.png. I'm going to temporarily comment these out. It doesn't let me comment it out. I'm learning a lot today. src. This is going to be where the image is. Previous image. I'm going to just like delete these real quick. And then it rebuilt, compiled successfully. Well, it works. There's my button. So I just have to start doing the same thing for the rest of them. Boop, 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 boop. This will just take a moment to kind of use copy-paste magic. Yeah, I'm rewriting this application. This is based off an old application. The application has been around for a while. It was written directly with no framework, just plain old JavaScript, and it's a bit of a mess. If you look in the code, it is not easy to follow. And importantly, not only is it not easy to follow, it is not easy to add things to, and I want to add things to the website. I want to add a lot of things. Pause. We have play. We have next. Visual Studio Code is an excellent tool. I would highly recommend. Look, there's my buttons. I think this is already a good start, because I'm already starting to see some results, right? Although, it doesn't do anything yet, and it's going to be a little bit before I get to making it do something. The next thing, using this as my source, this is current time. Then the progress bar. Then, and then time remaining. Shuffle, repeat, mute, and maximum volume. This one should go away. It's just a bad... Why do you need that? I have a volume bar here. I don't need a maximum volume button. What I would like is that the mute button is like a toggle. So like if you click this, it would maybe X out this bar, and then you click this again, it'll restore the volume to what it was before you muted it. You like this? The max volume. Not yours probably don't like it. If you ever, there's a reason I default the website here to volume like this, 10%, which is another thing I should address. Why the heck am I exposing? Like, why am I letting people use earbleed levels of volume? At the very least, maybe if I think this is the right volume, I should treat this at like 100% and let you go above 100%. You know what I mean? But before I get to that, I should still finish this off, make the rest of these controls. We've got current time. Let's say current timestamp. Progress bar. Let's say scrub bar. I don't know. What would you call this for the music progress bar or timer bar? Right. I like to stress how important it is to name things in a way that is like so obvious. When you see the name of this current timestamp thing, you know exactly what it's talking about. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to ask anyone else. And then we say remaining time. Oops. And then we've got, I think it was shuffle, shovel, followed by repeat, followed by mute. I'm just call it mute button. Volume bar. And we can put like max volume button. I might change this later, but it's not important for now. I can just put the button here and then always remove it later if I don't like it. So it does do some work to kind of like balance it, right? Because it's got the icons on either side. Visually, it's nice. I'll give you that. So I'm gonna have to make a whole bunch more buttons. These things, again, these look really simple for now. They will get more complicated as I go. One thing I'm going to take a moment to point out that these things are using the descriptive style of the descriptive paradigm. We had in our quiz earlier today the question about imperative programming and descriptive programming. God, I'm having it mixed up. Descriptive. It's called descriptive because this code here describes how it's supposed to look or how it's supposed to interact, right? I'm not telling it to do a thing. I am describing what I want. And descriptive. He wrote declarative in the quiz. I'm fairly certain the question was, well, I guess it's not important. Whichever word it is, descriptive or declarative, that's what this is. Current timestamp. This one's not going to be an image. This will just be a div. I'm going to put text in it. For now, it's going to have nothing in it. We'll say current time equals 0.00. put current time in here. Then we have music progress bar. This will be where the song name lives, in addition to the background. Actually, I'll make this a string with 0.00 in it right now. 0. Put. I guess when it's seconds and to milliseconds, you would have. I guess we want minutes and seconds, so yeah, I'll put the colon there. That's more like what you would see. How did I have it on my site before? It's colon, right? Yeah, it's a colon. Actually, I have 00 colon 00, so let's put that there. No track loaded. For the progress bar, I have a thing for remaining time. It's literally going to be the same thing with current time for now. Got the name, paste it. Remaining. Cool. Shuffle button. We're going to go back to having images that you can click on. So I'll copy this guy. Shuffle button. I'll say this uses a shuffle image, and then I'll have to import it in a moment. Repeat button. Repeat image. Mute button. You can see I'm already starting to fill up this file, so maybe sometime in the near future I'll start breaking this down into a different file. So we're going to make a volume bar. That is meant to be that. Volume bar. For now, I think we're going to call this just a div as well. With nothing in it. I'll come back to that one. It's going to be a little bit... I guess I could put the word volume in there. I think that's what I did before. Yeah, why don't I put the word volume in there? Yeah, let's put it in here. Volume. I'll use a capital V this time. Ooh. And then a max volume button. Max volume image. Okay, so now it needs to know what these images are. This should be shuffle image. I think I have a shuffle.png. Import repeat image. Import mute image from mute.png. Import max volume image from... Actually, I don't know what I called it. What is it? Max volume.png. Okay, makes perfect sense. Play progress. Ooh. Oh, I know what this is. This is used for the music progress bar. As in this example, this is not a good example. This is a better example. This shows how far into the song you are at a given time. So if I were to play the music, you'd see it slowly animates to the right and elongates over time. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I want to make sure I can get it looking at least as good as this next time. Back here. So how well does it look right now? Looks like I've got some kind of error. Const shuffle button. Failed to compile. Identifier shuffle button has already been declared. Okay. Because this is supposed to be shuffle image. So I imported this image and I called it shuffle button, and then I tried to redefine shuffle button here. So it got very sad with me. Can't find repeat.png. Loop. I called it loop.png here. Neat. I have all the stuff here I want, but it's not in a line the way I want it. This is where we start to use some CSS. Are you familiar with CSS? So what I need to do is add some rules for laying out this content, and I need to do so. First, what I need to do so is I need to give a class name that I can use, something for my rule to attach to. So like, let's see here, this div here, this music player needs a class name. I'm going to give it a class name of music player. Real creative, right? Then I'm going to start giving class names to everything else. Well, I'm going to start with this. Let's go to our CSS file. I'm just going to use the existing CSS file that they have and start adding to it. Music player. I want to make the music player I want it to be a flex box. Display flex. That'll make everything inside of it want to arrange horizontally. But it'll also do something else for me, which will be handy in a second. See, now they're all horizontally aligned. But these things are kind of crammed over on the left, and they should really be floating over on the right. There should be a lot of room for this progress bar, right? So what I'm going to do is come to the progress bar and give it a class name that I can refer to in the CSS. And I'm going to come to here. And give it a flex of 1. The way a flex container will work is it will draw everything side by side and give everything inside of the area the correct amount of width, unless like the width. It'll give everything inside the width that they need to be the right size, unless they've got a flex thing, in which case this is saying distribute the remaining space to this thing. So the button, all the buttons on the left are going to take up just as much space as they need. All the buttons on the right are going to take up just as much space as they need. But the progress bar is going to take up all the remaining space. Like that. This area is flexible. It is all crammed in together, which it would be nice to do something with that. I'd also like to change my colors, because this is really bright and obnoxious. So, what colors do I have on this website? I want to know what background color I've got. This is the text color, so I want to grab this. Background color? Oh, background color, where are you? I know you're somewhere. It should be alphabetical, but... Oh, it's just black. Is that just black? No. Yeah. I guess this is black and these are a gradient. Well, we can start with black. But this is black. This here, in where my cursor is. I'm gonna keep this color scheme. It's just my color scheme. I know a lot of people say it's kind of like a mixture of... Some people are like, it looks like a bunch of piss. But like, you know, what are you gonna do? I like this color scheme, so I'm keeping it. It's mine. Mine. I'm gonna put the background color here. RGB. It's a really useful one, but it can be pretty obnoxious to use. You know, I think that styling in HTML or on a web page is sometimes the most fun you can have, but sometimes the most miserable thing you could be spending your time doing. Because, like, depending on the day, you could either just all cooperate and you could slap stuff together and have something amazing quickly, or on some days it'll just be like, no, nothing's gonna work. Nothing's gonna work at all. It's like, I know what you want, but no, you don't get it. That's my color. For the text? No. That is the text color. Okay, and then the text has a shadow, which I think is important because there's a background to it and it makes it stand out a little bit. You can read it better. It's a bottom and right. It's another CSS thing. Oh, okay. I'll show you. This is how far down, and this is how far right I want that shadow. So, if you want to see it better, I should be able to make it pop. Oops. There. Do you see the shadow on these letters now? I want to keep that there because it helps the text be more legible against a brighter background. Okay, so this is getting somewhere. The text shadow is white, though. I really want the text shadow to be black. Oh, guess what? I can tell it what color to be. I suppose I could just use the word black here. Perfect. Yeah, this looks a lot less janky now. It's still kind of crammed in together, but you know, that's a good start. I'm happy with this. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be a good place to leave it. I think this is a good introduction to the very, very basics. I haven't added any interactivity yet, but I think it deserves a fresh start, like a fresh video to add interactivity. So, quick recap. In this video, I covered what this command prompt is, where it came from, why I'm using it. It's just a command prompt, but it's a shell that looks a lot like Linux. I talked about Node and Node Package Manager and the Node Package Script Executor, the NPX. I talked about the structure of a React project a little bit, about how things are added. So like our index.js adds this app, and then this app in turn adds a music player now that I added that, which in turn adds all these things. There's very little logic here. It's just simply a description of what I want to be on the screen, but it gives me exactly what I want. What else did I talk about? I talked a little bit about using the Npm Scripts. Not a whole lot. So there's Npm Start, which basically that builds your JavaScript for you, bundles it together like I was describing earlier. But it also starts a web server, and it will spit up a web browser for you. It basically minimizes the effort you have to do. See how it opened it up for me here? And as long as I have this running, anytime I make a change to a file, it'll detect the changes and it'll rebuild, and all those changes will appear live, which is pretty excellent. There are also some other scripts which I can cover in a different discussion. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions about anything I've said here, please let me know. I hope that you guys find this useful. I appreciate Richard being around and asking me poking questions now and then. And anything else you want to ask before I sign off? Sources. Where to get these tools? So Node.js. Recommended for most users. Click this, download it, and then open up a command prompt and start using it. Pretty simple. Once you've got that, in order to create a React application, you use the command. Basically, you go into the folder you want to be like where your project sits inside of, and you run a command called npx. I'll type it out. npx create React app, and then name of thing here, whatever you want to call your project. This will create a folder called name of thing here in the inside of whatever folder you're currently in. And some other people were asking me about using Git. Create React app also creates a local Git repository. So you can see it's got a Git folder here. I didn't have to do anything. I'm not really going to go into details about Git right now, but it's there. I also talked a little bit about how package managers work, what they are, what they do, what this one's doing. I may show how to install new packages as we go. I think I'm going to need to install a package for a library that actually is responsible for making audio come out of the speakers, because without that, how am I going to play music? Any other questions? All right. I'm glad I could help. Well, there's no way to sign off without being awkward, so... Yo, where's the thing? Oh man, I'm making it more awkward. No, God,